one. Try. Okay, that's great. So I propose you to start without any delay because, as you know, the timing is pretty tight. So you are very welcome. We are very happy to welcome you here in Wallonia. I hope the journey was safe. Obviously, yes. So we are very happy to organize this first peer review meeting. So the peer review meeting 1 in Wallonia. Sorry, maybe stop the microphone here. We are maybe not at the Oscars receptions, but it's important to inaugurate officially this session. We think it's important that the authority knows what's being done here during this meeting, and it's important that the authority could support us in this reflection, in this first step of our reflection. So I will give the floor to our General Inspector. So this is the head of our department, the DEMNA. DEMNA is the acronym for Department for Survey on Environment, Natural Resources and Agriculture. So Mr. Marc Herman, I will leave him the floor.
Thank you, Luc. Once again, hello to everybody. And it's a real pleasure to welcome you in this meeting. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear European partners and stakeholders of Interreg CIBioGo, in your titles and qualities, on behalf of Mrs. Céline Tellier, who is Minister of the Environment, Nature, Forestry, Rural Affairs and Animal Welfare, and on behalf of Mrs. Benedict Hendricks, who is General Director of our Walloon Public Service for Agriculture, Natural Resources and Environment, I'm pleased, really pleased, to welcome you today to the first peer review meeting in the Interreg CIBioGo project. There is no doubt that this project, dedicated to participatory governance in the field of biodiversity, responds to many societal concerns. Participatory governance processes are crucial to nature conservation. They allow the integration of a lot of expertises, leading to more informed and legitimate decisions. By involving citizens and stakeholders in decision-making, these processes strengthen the social acceptance of conservation policies. The active participation of local communities ensures greater ownership of protection measures and encourages the sustainable management of natural resources. This is the background of the CIBioGo project, as you know, which aims to promote participatory and inclusive governance of biodiversity across Europe. The chosen approach is to pool the knowledge and the expertise of our 7 European regions in order to move forward together towards a greater citizen involvement in our management and decision-making processes. Today, this workshop marks the start of this interregional learning process. Congratulations. It offers an opportunity to bring together local actors, engage citizens, experts, and political decision makers around the same table to exchange, collaborate, and jointly develop innovative and effective solutions for the preservation of biodiversity. Wallonia is really proud to host this inaugural workshop of the CIBioGo project. We firmly believe in the power of collaboration and in the citizen participation in order to face the environmental challenges. Together, We can develop ambitious policies. We can implement concrete actions and create a real momentum in favor of biodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's time to act. The first workshop of the CIBioGo project is a unique opportunity to make our voices heard, to share our ideas and experiences, and actively contribute to building a more sustainable future for all of us. To conclude, I wish you to engage fully in this workshop, to participate actively to the discussions and debates, and to contribute to making this project a collective success. Together, we are stronger, and together we can make the difference for biodiversity and for our planet. Thank you for your attention. Enjoy this workshop and enjoy your stay in Belgium, Wallonia. Thank you for us.
Thank you very much, Marc. I just wanted to know, je vais le dire en français comme c'est Simon, est-ce qu'on est connecté pour les collègues étrangers qui suivent? On sait si c'est bon? So my question was, because you know that there are two, our friends from Spain are not here. It's important for them to be able to follow the debates in the session here. So normally, may we have a sign from them? No, not yet. They are not connected. I hope they had received the link. So I don't know if I can do anything, but all the disposal is here.
I guess that they will join.
Okay.
When they had their morning coffee.
That's perfect. Okay, let's start. I will explain you in a few words. Thank you very much, Marc, for the inauguration, official inauguration of this workshop.
Je peux juste vérifier qu'ils
Oui.
ne sont pas en train d'attendre et que c'est pas vous qui devez les...
Qui seraient dans le salon? Non, pas encore. Hein. Okay. So I will explain in a few words how it will be organized, how the few days will be organized. So I will launch my presentation. I hope for a few seconds. Is that? That's perfect. So we are the first peer review meeting, as explained, in Wallonia. CIBioGo peer review meeting 1. We set 3 different objectives when we discussed with the colleagues. The 3 main objectives that we have on the table is, of course, put the laying of the foundation of the joint thinking. Marc said this is the first step of our interregional learning process. So the joint thinking is beginning now with this first workshop. The second objective is, of course, to be able to calibrate the peer review meeting methodology. Keep in mind that that session, the 3-day session that we have here, is a pilot session. So this is the first essay that we make, the first try that we make with the colleagues. We discuss all together how it could be organized around one topic, one main topic. We have to assess this way to go on. It will be the job of Nora in a couple of days, but it's very important to calibrate and to be to agree on the methodology that we have proposed here within this Wallonia workshop. And then, of course, you are here partners, you are here stakeholders, so it's very important to go on with building the network that we started in our Potenza meeting in last October. It was the first step. We met for the first time in reality because the kickoff was online, of course. Here, this is the second step in a real life, and it's a good time that we have to continue, especially with the stakeholders, because the stakeholders are very important in the methodology, in the group process. So it's very important as an objective. The program for the first day will be two main things. The masterclass this morning, we will start in a few minutes, and then this afternoon, the stakeholders workshop. So this is the two main objectives that we face for today. Tomorrow on Wednesday 20, we are going to visit on the field. The aim of the visit on the field will be, of course, to illustrate some of the concept, the ideas that we developed today, but to show you some examples that we find interesting in the context of participation, citizen partnership, involvement, and some good examples in Wallonia. So we are going to make a tour by a coach tomorrow to discover these places and to exchange with people presenting their projects. On Thursday, it will be, so the two first days you have understood that this is dedicated to the partner. So this is the partners with the stakeholders. All together we are exchanging, we are making this interregional learning, learning process. On the Thursday it will be concentrated, it will be focused on the partnership, and the partners will discuss about project management, so the steering committee. And in the afternoon it will be the thematic session, during which we are going to assess the process and much more. Nora will explain it after. If we start with the masterclass and the stakeholders workshop, I said minutes ago that it has been focused on biological data or biodiversity information. Why? The first reason, and it's maybe because this is our DNA in DNE, in the Directorate of Nature and Water, biological data, that's maybe the best that we can contribute with this project, because this is our business, our everyday business, so it's important for us to be able to show you the way we are dealing with biological data. But the second reason is, I think, much more important. This is that, to our opinion, biological data play a founding and a central role when we are speaking of nature conservation, when we are speaking about communication, when we are speaking about actions, concrete actions. You need, of course, biological data, biological information. That's why we propose to start this interregional process with this topic. And we propose to organize, if there are some professional people here dealing with biodiversity, of course. So you know that at first you have to plan. You have to plan the collect, you have to plan all the data management cycle. This is the data management cycle. Once you have planned your effort, your means, you have defined everything you need, you can go on the field and do the collection of data. Then, of course, data are maybe good, maybe not. You have to check your data and you have to validate your data. So validation is a very important step. Once the data are valid, you can go, of course, on processing. You can process the data, you can analyze the data, and the purpose afterwards is, of course, the most important thing, that doing this without using the data, it's a nonsense. Of course, this step is very important. You have to use the data, and you have many ways to use the data. We decide to focus on fourth, the dissemination, so you can communicate with biological data. You can take decision. The decision makers are needing data to take relevant decisions. You can do concrete actions in terms of nature conservation, and you can do reporting. So we are focusing on this different aspect, and after the use, of course, you will assess the process and planning again. So this is the cycle you have to keep in mind, because this cycle who gave the sense and who gave the different orientation in the working group that we will have this afternoon. And it will give the sense to the session of the masterclass. The masterclass will be divided in these different processes. The masterclass, keep in mind this morning, it will be to assess the way these different processes, planning, collection, validation, are done here in Wallonia. So there are experts here, there are professors, there are colleagues dealing with biodiversity data, and they are going to explain you how they manage their job, their responsibilities about data, and they will give you an impression of the level of citizen involvement in collection, in validation, in every processes. So the morning will be devoted to assessment. This afternoon, it will be a reflection in terms of improvement. You will hear what's going on concerning data during the morning, and during the afternoon session, it will be how to improve. Maybe validation. You have probably good ideas. You do maybe in Latvia, maybe in Slovenia. You do good processes, maybe good practices, and it's really important to share, to discuss within the different groups for the stakeholders workshop. So assessment in the morning, improvement the afternoon. The masterclass, the timing is very tight. You know that I'm already late because I should have finished at quarter. So, respect of the schedules. The timekeeper will be Nora. Pay attention because she can bite. She should. I'm sorry. What about the question on questions? This is a problem, of course. If our timing is tight, we have no time for debate. This is an option we have chosen. We could have chosen maybe 2 or 3 different presentations and have debate, but we chose other way. The other way is to present the more global situation on data. And of course, you could formulate your question because you get some post-it, so it's always possible to write them down on the post-it, and you will give the staff, the Walloon staff, the post-it afterwards, or you can send question to the speakers. I will give you all the details of all the speakers. If you have any question, feel free to contact them by email. Okay? And the third and maybe more informal possibility will be, of course, to take benefit from the lunch, from the coffee break, to call them, to discuss with them. The stakeholders workshop will be organized, this is for the afternoon, in 4 working groups. Why 4? Because there is a planning group, a collection, dissemination, and actions. We have 2 missing groups because the choices were includes validation and processing. Unfortunately, there are not so many people choosing these groups, so it means that it's a nonsense to make a group with 2 people. So we propose to cancel these 2 groups and to choose maybe other processes. An idea would be either a discussion by mail or maybe a brainstorming that we can organize afterwards. I will see, we will see it maybe together, Nora, because it could be nevertheless interesting to have your idea, your reflection about validation and about processing. But we can do it afterwards. The stakeholders workshop, it will be divided into 2 different phases of thinking, and a coffee break just between, and a plenary session for restitution. Okay, we will be helped with the 3. No, just people of my generation can understand. I don't know who is getting the reference. Who is, quick, simple, who is getting the reference? Mark? Okay, not so many old people in the room. It's okay.
Team Pool gets it, and
So,
hopefully we will be able
but this time this is not Charlie's Angels, and this is Emmanuel's Angels. Emmanuel is their director from the. They are coming from our Walloon Public Service, from the, let's say, development and support to human resources. That's the name of your directorate. It will be Coralie, Nathalie, and Véronique. There are 3 there. You can raise the hand. Okay. So it will be our facilitator for the afternoon. Okay? So let's start without, not without any delay, because we already have a quarter of an hour. But I will invite you to hear and to start the masterclass. This masterclass will start with the planning. Alessandro, you want to? No, we are going to make the masterclass. If you, want to
few
leave
words.
please do.
Thank you, Luc. Thank you, Mark, for organizing this meeting. I am Alessandro. I am the representative of the lead partner of this initiative, because we have to remember that we are in an interregional initiative that we are sharing. This is the first meeting that we have on the contents of the project. So we start today with the exchange of experiences, to the preview, and to visit the good practice we have selected. We started from here, then we have other meetings during the next 1 year, I suppose. And I want to acknowledge that the effort that we have done to organize this meeting is not easy. An easy task to organize a 3 days meeting, because everybody is engaged in a lot of activities, and for us is a good opportunity also this to exchange, to meet, to exchange views. But most of the work that we have to do is to revise our ideas, our policy making documents, plans, tools, and this is a good opportunity to take this, to work on this, because we have to report to our, when you come back, we are 7 partners, 6 authorities, one scientific partner, say, expert in this, but the authority has to report to our policymakers what we have done, and this is a good opportunity to enlarge our vision. So we are working on this kind of project since 20 years now, so I think that we have a lot of experience done, and we know that this opportunity that the European Union give us is a good opportunity to be used for improving our attitude, let's say like this, because we have a lot of things to share, to learn from each other, and this is a good way to do it. So thank you very much for this. We will follow with very interest what you have programmed, we have to plan, especially tomorrow. I want to see. I'm curious to see everything when I go traveling, and that's all. Thank you, and good job to everybody.
Thank you. We will start the masterclass with the presentation of Annick. So the masterclass, if you remember, this is the first step is the planning. So Annick Terneuse is a partner of CIBioGo. She is a financial manager in the Walloon team, but she is director of Directorate Nature and Water. So it means that for her, data, planning, resources, this is her job, and she will explain how she does with planning about data. So I give you the floor. Take this microphone.
Thank you, Luc. Okay, I will start this workshop by telling you shortly how the biological data planning process is implemented inside the Directorate of Nature and Water. As public body, we have an assignment from the Walloon government, which is develop and disseminate knowledge and data relating to nature and biodiversity. This assignment covers 11 activities. We work on invasive alien species. We contribute to the National Belgian Biodiversity Platform. We monitor Natura 2000 habitats and species. We also work to better know protected spaces and heritage habitats. We study the populations of wild ungulates and small game and their relationships with their environment. We have to monitor wildlife health. We make the biological survey for the Water Framework Directive. We have to evaluate the biological quality of sites in Wallonia, and we try to develop a prospective approach for biodiversity in Wallonia. As you can see on the right, most of these activities are linked to laws or regulations. So, we can identify the specific products is expected, and for each one, the deadline. These products are expected at different levels, as you see, international, European, Belgian, Wallonian, and local level. There are various periodicities, and they come in various forms of reportings. To prepare these products, we manage a centralized database with biological data, of course, coming from our own internal survey, but also from data sharing with partners, from citizen science, and we also pay bodies to provide us data. So we can analyze the biological data and know what we have and what we need. We also know the resources allocated by the Walloon government. We are 63 colleagues, of which 49 working on biological data management, in planning, collecting, validation, analysis, and dissemination processes. We have possibilities to develop our skills. And we have a defined budget for public procurements in research and monitoring. So the frame is clear. We know where we are, we know where we have to go, and we know the means given to achieve it. So we make mainly an in-house planning. The planning consists of defining which part we realize ourselves, what we try to obtain through citizen sciences, for example, with awareness campaigns, what we outsource by public procurements, what we can obtain from existing naturalist groups, and so on, regarding the time, the costs, and the skills. So the question in this clear framework is it relevant to develop citizen participation in the biological data planning process, even if the way may be less straight to the point? We look forward to hearing your views on this subject this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annick, for this view of the planning. Mark. So this is for the planning. So you understood that the planning is done by in-house process. Now it's time to start with the collection phase. We are going to welcome Mr. Marc Dufresne. Marc is a former colleague of the directorate, but he works now as he became a professor at the University of Liège He is a biodiversity data specialist. He is a specialist in ecosystem services and much more. And he's going to explain the evolution of data collection since we have online interface have developed. It has given us certain a lot of problems maybe, and Mark will explain us everything on that topic. I leave him the floor before I try to, okay, take this one. Merci. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello? Okay, yes. Thank you for the introduction, Luc. So I will present the changes, the consequences of changes in behavior of field observers since the development of new technologies. Belgium has a long tradition for naturalist observation. The first atlas of the flora of Belgium has been published 50 years ago. Botanists have systematically explored the country, completing standardized forms to record the presence of species. This checklist was then used to compile atlas maps by hand. In the same time, similar inventories were carried on insects, where records of species in collections were used to produce distribution maps for almost 2,000 species. Since 1990s, the storing of observation has evolved with the use of digital encoding interfaces, enabling many contributors to encode their observations. Recently, the interfaces have evolved further to enable recording directly in the field, and even to enable the species observed to be identified directly with artificial intelligence. Thanks to these new interfaces, over 9 million of observations are made every year in Belgium. 20% of them are made in Wallonia. So we can be very happy to have so much data. But what are the use of such database? They are not only used to produce atlases. They are also important to identify the most endangered species and those that will benefit from protection status. The data are also important to build ecological network and to define conservation strategies on the field. It is therefore very important, essential, to trust the data. The proliferation of data raised a number of questions about the accuracy of coordinates, about the quality of the quality for additional details to use them correctly, because we have a lot of, by example, we have a lot of bird data, but only 2% can be used to assess a reproduction on the field. We have also a lot of questions about especially the biases, like, because we know by example that in Belgium, 1/3 to 1/2 of the data collected only on 10% of the territory near natural reserve. I will not go in detail about these different problems, to focus only on the consequence of changes of behavior by the widespread use of a new technological system to store biological observation. The database are indeed completed by professionals, but also by citizen data. Professionals are identified by working in NGOs, research teams, or consultancies. We can begin the analysis by analyzing the contribution of the two groups to the distribution of species. Here is dragonflies. On the left, you have widespread species, and on the right, you have more rare species. You can see that before the development of new technologies, there were around 100 of professionals for this group, who alone contributed to 80% of the data, and just over 3 times more volunteers, who alone accounted to half of the data. So volunteers make a relatively limited additional contribution, but they still contribute also to better know the species distribution. For the more recent period, there are many more observers, and they cover the distribution area of species much better. Volunteers are now giving more information for a lot of species, and even for rare species, they are very useful to follow, to monitor species that are rare but widespread in the landscape, not specifically associated to specific habitats, where professionals are better indeed to get information. If we now look on the way in which observations are made, before 2000, most volunteers and professionals compiled a lot of lists of species, with more or less species by list. After 2000, it's not longer the case. The vast majority of observations are of one species, of very limited number of species, and only fewer complete lists are done. And we have also a problem, maybe, because the volunteers and professionals too, indeed now, are trained to record mainly information about rare species. When in this graph, you have the number of squares occupied by a species on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, you have the proportion of professional origin. If we look at the professional and non-professional origin of the data for florals here, you see that 44% of the data are done by professional. And it's only and when you see for the more wild species, you have a contribution from professional and for specific species in red, and in green you have the contribution specific for the contribution of volunteers for specific species in green. But after 2000, there is a huge changes, because we have a great number now of volunteers, but professionals account still for 30% of the data. But now, clearly, the rarer the species, the more often they are observed by volunteers. And this is a change very important, because it will limit, for the moment, indeed, the use of the data. And it will complicate it also, the analysis, because it's difficult to have a complete list for several sites, and also to use the absence. When you are working with the temporal series, you cannot assess the absence now. And the last point, because we have not many time to discuss, I have a long things to do to say about this data. Another consequence of this change is the change in detectability of species. And this graph shows how evolves the species richness of different groups of species defined on the basis of their rarity. For example, the very common species in red are the first to be observed when we are going on the field, and quickly saturate when almost all species, widespread species, have been observed. More species is unique or rare, more times it takes to observe them in the field. If we apply this pattern to the different sampling period for flora, by example, but it's the same for other groups, we see a marked difference. For older data, the inventory was quite systematic, with an expected distribution of the different categories of rarity, as you can see here. For the post-Atlas period, inventories were more focused on rare species, neglecting more widespread species. And since the development of new technologies, the inventories are even different, with more abundant species, because we have a lot of AS on the field, with many observers everywhere, but also for more rare species and for very rare species too. And if we didn't sample, indeed we didn't sample in the same way at all. This severely limits our ability now to assess whether a species is expanding or declining. I give you here some examples, starting with the case of a species which is quite simple, because it has become very rare, while sampling has strongly increased. For this one, it's more complicated because it's probably increasing species. You have an increase in the number of observations, but it's difficult to say if this is the results of a positive change in its status. It may be simply the consequence of the increasing sampling. And it can be problematic for species like orchids, by example, because observers are recording them very, they like to store information with this species. And for this protected species, it's even problematic. All field naturalists now have numerous populations that have disappeared, and the increase of the number of squares is only apparent indeed. It's a good news about the actual size of the species distribution, but not about its dynamics. We must continue to protect it indeed. So the detectability of species have evolved considerably, and this raises questions about the methods to be used to detect threats. And for the last point, does more data indicate mean more information? Potentially, yes, but it's the case if the quality of data is good or it's even better. As I won't be there this afternoon, I propose for you 4 strategies. The better is quite simple. It's improve the quality of the data to make it more accurate. We have a lot of correction to do on all data to precise the information and to get him a second life indeed. Secondly, it's also very necessary to structure and to support the processes of validating data flows and to ensure that they are consistent. It's a pity for me that the 2 point, this point is not studied in your meeting, because it's very important. The validation of data is a very crucial point. Thirdly, we need also to standardize some biological inventories. It's very difficult to do it with citizen science, to keep some standards or to impose some constraints about the sampling. And finally, I know that you are working on citizen science involvement, but it's absolutely essential to support proper biological inventories carried out by professionals too. We cannot continue to rely on the goodwill of volunteers. So I suppose that you will discuss about it this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark, for this interesting point on data evolution. So it's time to go on with the observation, with the collection process, with the second presentation that will be done by Jean-Sébastien Rousseau-Pillot from Natagora. You should know that Natagora is a very important, probably the biggest nature conservation association in Wallonia. And I will leave the floor. He will give us some information from the observers and observation networks, but from the inside. And this is a very important point of view, because Natagora is, of course, supporting many observers networks.
Hello, everybody. As Mark just suggested, there's a lot of things to do to enhance the process of data collection and validation. And I think I'm quite at the right place to talk about this, because I'm working in Natagora as observer, volunteer. I manage the system observation .be. I will explain what it is. I'm training people. I'm a validator. I'm training validators, and I'm extracting data to send data to different administrations, for example. So I think I can maybe show you a good picture of the landscape. What is now. So this is the main process of the system. Well, just to show you the context, Natagora is an association with 160 employees, 1,500 volunteers, 30,000 members, and 6,000 hectares of nature reserves. So we have different departments: science department, which I work there; conservation department, because we need to manage nature reserves; volunteering, because we need to activate our volunteers; and of course education, to train them, but also to sensibilize people about nature. Well, to try to be efficient, we are divided in 26 local groups in Wallonia, and 5 AVIS sections. This is only for birds, so there are different sections for birds monitoring. We have poles and working groups. Poles are, in fact, working groups, but which were formerly different associations which have been grouped in Natagora recently. So one AVIS for birds, RAIN for amphibians, and Plecotus for bats. Then a different working group for beavers, swallows, wolves, swifts, pollinators, moths, and citra. So there are geographical subdivision and thematic subdivisions. Yes, we have 261 nature reserves, and of course we are doing monitoring in these reserves. For these, we have about 200 volunteers who are trained on specific groups and animated to go in the reserves to monitor, for example, here, Coleoptera. In a former year it was butterflies, then maybe in 1 year it will be dragonflies, and so on. And we publish reports about this monitoring. Then we have long existing observer networks. For example, for the International Waterbird Census in Wallonia, well, this is a long-running monitoring program, also with up to 100 volunteers. It's a structured program because people are assigned to places to count waterbirds each winter. Of course, they need to send their result to a centralized structure. So it's a very structured project. This is the old way. In fact, as Mark explained, it was quite clear what was an observer network. A group of people with coordinators, and then all the data gathered to one place and analyzed and sent to here an international group. But now it's quite different. Formerly, this was the way to work. Small groups, manifold numbers, phone calls, meetings, physical meetings. We send lists, complete list, to the post. Now it's completely different because of the technology, in fact. And the technology bring what we called nature portals to gather biological data. Natagora chooses the system Observation International, observations.be for Belgium. In fact, we have a sister association in Flanders, which is Natuurpunt, and we use the same system together. Well, this is initially a web portal when you can log observation, and it evolved a lot, and now we have different applications you can use directly in the field to log observation. As Mark said, only one bird at one place, or one plant, or structured data with transects and so on. And more recently, there is observative application which use artificial intelligence, and in fact was designed to real beginners, to be used by everybody. You can take a picture, then you have an answer from the intelligence and say, yes, it's maybe this plant, or it's surely this bird, and so on. The result, of course, is that the number of observers has hugely increased. So this is the beginning of the observation.be system, and now we are here, end of last year, with effects of the COVID. Here, a lot of people go back in the nature, and, well, they give us their observations. And second effect, the application, OpsIdentify, which is designed for everybody, and you see the huge increase here. It's very clear. Of course, we have in Belgium a situation where in Wallonia we have French-speaking observers, but also a lot of Dutch-speaking observers, because nature is a bit better in Wallonia, so they like to come in our reserves, because they don't have such kinds of habitats in Flanders. So they contribute a lot also to the observation. So now we have different categories of observers, from really newbies with OpsIdentify to professionals, and very different times. You have citizens who participate to winter garden bird counts, for example. You have, of course, in birding, you have Twitcher who want to see as many species as possible. You have volunteers participating to more structured projects. You have free electron geeks, which in fact nobody knows, but they are very specialized in one type of animals or plants, and maybe we still don't know them, but they log the data in the system. And of course, some people are paid to gather data. And boundaries are really not clear between these. For example, I'm a professional, But for some group, I'm really new by. I use Identify. I'm a Twitcher. I'm a citizen who participates in big citizen science programs. I'm sometimes a volunteer. And for some group, I was a free electron geek some years ago for White Bees. Well, so it's very difficult to say who is who. Here are the number of observations by species group in the system. You can see that birds are still the main logged species. Of course, it's easy, they are everywhere, the whole year, so they're quite easy to identify. Then plants, then moths. Moths, oh, particular. Yes, there are some patients, in fact. Some years ago, they began to, citizens or geeks began to put light traps, and the artificial intelligence is very efficient for moths, so a lot of people collect data about moths. So this is, yes, a synthesis of the different groups. We are using more and more this system for structured project. For example, this winter we have structured project about wintering snipes in Wallonia, and we use the system. We made volunteers making transects, and the data is in the system. We can extract it, analyze it, and so on. But there's still a lot of things to do. First, need to convert the old observers to the new system. Not always easy, because there are some kind of barriers for old observers. Learn observers to use the system in a better way, better localization. For example, making complete lists. Inform observers about project, because they maybe not know there is a project in the area. Give feedback to observers, very important. Expand the team of validators, because the data is really increasing. But you need to never lose sight that the observer's motivation is satisfaction. And never consider them as just like a drone. You send them to collect data about birds, about butterflies. No. And satisfaction can be very different things. And each observer is different. This was an inquiry made by Dutch people on data from observation.nl. And you can see that the motivation are being connected to nature is very important. This is a real motivation. Learning more. Of course, contributing to nature. And so on. Well, the challenge now is to connect with them. In a way, they connect with us through the system, but how can we connect with them? With the explosion of social networks, well, it's very complicated. Everybody uses different things. You cannot make groups in all these things. And this is not really efficient. Of course, they are more multidisciplinary. Formerly you have birders, you have people who are looking for plants, other people looking for dragonflies. Now, it's different. And there are so many information about so many species, so it's really difficult to communicate. These are all partial solutions. We have an internet social media for Natagora. Staff, but also members, volunteers, and we can connect with them this way. We organize webinars. We are making tutorials, video meetings, group meetings, so physically meet people, newsletters. but it costs more and more because a lot of observers, and formerly it was free, but not the case anymore. Courses, MOOCs, presential courses, practice in the field, very, very important. And even deeper in the field, we organize, for example, weekend for practical ornithology, to learn them how to participate to an atlas, for example. So these are the different way we use. Some examples in the field or here in a classroom. Okay, what are the breaks now? There are different types. One break is legislation and administration. Well, it's normal. Wallonia is a small region with a small surface of natural reserves, and you very often need authorization to collect data because you cannot use a net. If you do not have, you cannot go out of the path and so on. So it's difficult, in fact, for volunteers to collect good data about biodiversity. Of course, technology evolves, but it costs more and more. Now you have artificial intelligence, bat detectors, thermal cams, sound analysis, DNA, and also the big data. It costs a lot to store all this data. So this is to take into account. Funding for the structural aspect of data collection is very rarely taken into account into fundings. Okay, you can pay a professional to go in the field and so on, but very often you do not have means to activate the network, to talk with observers, to learn, to enhance them. So it's very important, it's really underestimated. And also, if we want that data collection, if citizens who participate to data collection are representative of the society, there's a lot of things to do, but because actually, mainly they are males of a certain age with a certain level of life, and in fact, it doesn't represent the society. So it's difficult to explain to people why some decisions are taken if they are not included in the process. So there is a real thing to do about this. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jean-Sébastien, for this very inspiring presentation. Now we have finished with the two sessions, the two presentations. We wanted to show you about data collection. It was a presentation, the view of evolution, data evolution from Marc. Jean-Sébastien presented very interesting way to try to make the network dynamic. This is a real challenge. Now it's time to talk about validation. Marc said validation is very important, and validation will be presented by our colleague Alain Licop. Alain is the coordinator of the wildlife unit within the Directorate of Nature and Water. He is a specialist of large mammal species, and he will tell us the way they are validating data through two things. One tool, which is Agouti platform, and one network, the Wolf network. I give you the floor, Alain.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, no. Can you hear me? Not yet. Now, maybe better? Yes? Okay. Thank you, Luc, for introducing me. So, as Luc said, we are mainly in our small team, wildlife unit, we are dealing with mammals. That's our core business. And I will try to show you some tools that we are using in order to validate the data about mammals. So, as you can see, this is the classical biological data workflow already shown by Luc at the beginning of the session. And these are the examples that I would like to share with you about first camera trap networks and also opportunistic sightings. This is mainly in the context of the wolf return in Wallonia. So, as already said, validation is an important step in the process, and validation will really give the value to your data you are collecting. So, when focusing on mammals, of course, you know that mammals are species that are quite complicated to detect. They are nocturnal for most of them, elusive like wolf, and of all sizes. You can see on the right side monitoring by camera traps of rodents. But the issue are very strategic for mammals, like any other species. But we have Natura 2000 reporting obligation, invasive species reporting, but also many projects dealing with the management of invasive species in order to control their population. And we also have some projects about game species. As an example, here we are part of a European network founded by EFSA in order to give some values of warble population estimates, having, of course, African swine fever in mind. So these are the main objectives that we are dealing with. And monitoring by camera traps is, of course, developing a lot. Why? First, because it is simple to use. You get, of course, pictures. You can use them to help validation. These cameras are non-invasive, so you can capture some moments of the lives of mammals without disturbing them. Thanks to the technological evolution, for example, now the flash, the LED, the dark LED flashes are widely used, and it avoids any risk of disturbance for mammals. Costs are lower and lower, and all these pictures are, of course, interesting for mammal identification, but allow validation. On the right, you can see one of the first pictures that we took, since our unit is dealing with camera traps since the 90s. As I said, we have a huge evolution of the use of camera traps around the world. You can see the evolution of the number of papers using camera trapping along the time. You can see this is widespread, mainly in the most developed countries, unfortunately. Camera trap studies are mainly dealing with mammals because it is well adapted to these species. But as you can see here, more and more studies are also dedicated to birds, for example. Camera traps are also used for many issues, such like methodology at the first, management plans, but also monitoring and conservation. So the example we choose is the use of the Agouti platform. Agouti platform is a web portal where you can introduce your data. This platform is designed to organize, process, and store the camera trap imagery. This has been developed by University of Wageningen together with our colleagues from the Flemish region, from the Institute of Nature and Forest Research, and founded by Belgium, but also by EFSA from the European Union. So, how does it work from the fields, from your camera trap to the final product? It could be a GB file. You will organize your project as with a sampling design made of a network of cameras. These cameras will collect during a certain period that you have to decide before, of course, will collect data. These data can be collected directly from the camera through the SD cards to your personal computer, and then connecting to the platform, you can upload all your pictures, all your data on the Agouti platform in a standardized way. So all the data will be structured very clearly on the platform. On the platform, you will use an interface, an easy-to-use interface to identify the species, and then once identified, you can export your data into standardized fields and names, which will be usable directly through different structure like GBive. The process is the following. So first, the design of the project, decide the sampling design, random, systematically. So you need, of course, to be really well structured when you decide to start a project. What is the main issue? How to collect the data to answer this issue. Then you put the cameras on the field. After the collection period, import them into Agouti, annotate them, and then export. What's interesting with that kind of platform is, of course, you have to think about the issue, the main topic you want to study. You define the sampling design, but you will also include, if necessary, partners. And partners can be volunteers, simple users that are dealing with camera trap. And you have just to convince them to share the information into this single platform. Typically, for example, in Wallonia, where we have a strict legislation about using the forest, you have to keep the pass and you cannot go out. We usually try to collaborate with hunters who are allowed to get outside of the path. So cameras in the field can be put by volunteers. You can give different access when you are importing the data into Agouti. You can just ask the guy to give the SD cards, or you can ask him by giving him access to the platform to upload by himself the pictures on the platform. Then the annotation phase, when you are visualizing the pictures on the screen, is of course very important. But you can ask volunteers to do so. They can be helped by artificial intelligence also. But you can mainly also validate this observation after they have recorded their own information. Then you just have to export the data to get back all the structured database. In the system, there are some validation tools that are very interesting. First, about the metadata. So the system is able to retrieve from the picture all the information, available information, based on optical character recognition. For example, you will scan the temperature, the different information available on the picture, but by also extracting the exchange image file format, so all the information included in the picture, of course, date, hour, and so far. Um, some camera traps are also equipped with a GPS, so you can have the possibility to collect the geographical coordinates. Once when you try to identify the species, you can have also the possibility to give different kind of access to the users of the platform. So, for example, you can just allow the user to view the images, but without annotating them. You can ask the volunteer, you can give the permission to the volunteer to annotate the pictures, so give the name of the species and also give the number of animals. Very interesting, you have also a taxonomic expert access. Taxonomic expert access will have the possibility to visualize some taxons, for example, mustelids. If you have a specialist in mustelids, you give him access to the project and he will only check all the mustelids pictures. So that's the point. So this is the interface that we are that is proposed with the Agouti platform. Pictures are gathered in a single sequence, so you don't have to just see image by image. You can have the sequence. So when you are checking it, it's like video. It's much more easy to recognize the species and to count the animals. So first you can ask the machine to launch artificial intelligence. It will help in 80% of the cases. Now there is also a possible way of validation through crowdsourcing via Zooniverse, which is another platform, worldwide platform used for data collection. As I said, the basic image recognition by the volunteer, but usually it's a student. Clearly, we use many students to do that. This is controlled by the taxonomic expert for some species and by the principal investigator for all the species. So what we ask the volunteer when they don't know what species is on the picture, we ask them to remain the field species empty so that we can check it afterwards. There is also a tick box with uncertain. If they tick the box uncertain, we can go directly to check only the observations that were uncertain. In the platform, so you can have access to the deployments, so all the cameras that have been deployed during a certain time, and check, for example, if all the sequences have been filled in. If not, we can go and fill the sequences in with the right species. Another way to check is you can ask the platform to list by species. For example, here, in this case, we asked to list on the targeted species from that project, which is muntjac, Chinese muntjac, because we are looking for them to manage them. And we can just have a look at the lines by clicking on this dot. You can see the pictures and validate them. Important, you also always have the name of the identifier on the right. You can see, for example, Alain Licob, no problem, the observation is right. Nicolas Melati is a student. We have to check because it's not so expert. So another example here is about we are launching a project together with the roads administration from Wallonia. just to show that Agouti is well adapted to collaborative projects. So the road administration would like to have a good surveillance of the storm drains along the roads, mainly to target on beavers, because beavers are causing some problems in that kind of management. And we suggested them to use Agouti because we can then share the expertise, we can make the identification by ourselves, and they provide the cameras, they provide also all the time spent on the field to put the cameras on site. And it is of course very interesting for us because then we have a nice coverage of Wallonia because we are in contact with them and they are owners of all these small spots along the roads. Another example of validation of data is through the wolf monitoring in Wallonia. So this wolf monitoring was necessary because of the recolonization of wolves of every single country in Europe. You can see here the evolution from the packs from Germany and Poland in 10 years. You can see that we are now fully concerned by this species, with some packs situated in the east part of Wallonia. A short reminder about how we organize the wolf monitoring in Wallonia. Sorry, we first have been trained by French colleagues from the Office of French Biodiversity because, of course, of their expertise about wolves. So the idea was to be trained for the detection of wolf signs of presence. We had the first detection of wolf in 2017. Then we developed the wolf network, the Walloon Wolf Network, with around 60 people that have been trained for the analysis of data from wolves. 2018, the first established wolves. So then we had our first management plan in Wallonia. And currently we have 3 packs that have been settled in our region. So the wolf network, it was important to anticipate the return of wolf, to document it on a scientific basis, and the idea was also to make a kind of multi-partner platform for the data collection, the centralization of the data, and also the validation, because it is, of course, a hot topic with some consequences. The philosophy of the network is to mix several stakeholders into a single network, of course with the administration, but also the universities and NGOs that are mainly facing the return of wolf, such like farmers, hunters, and also naturalists. The current situation of wolf in Wallonia is that we have now an area of about 600 square kilometers that we know that there are wolves, so we have our own monitoring with camera traps, with the scat collection and so far. But we have a huge area, so let's say Wallonia, without this territory of wolves, where we are looking for data about wandering wolves that are difficult to detect, and where the only data we have are opportunistic data. So through the wolf network we can collect some data, but most of the data about wolf in Wallonia are coming from citizen science through our portal about collection of data about this species. Merci. So, what are the main type of data about wolves? So you have visual sightings, tracks, howling, scats, hair, wolf carcass, and preys, domestic and wild prey. So we have been trained by French colleagues to recognize and to make the distinction between wolf and dogs, for example, concerning the praise elements. So we are using a standardized method to characterize an observation based on its verifiability. So this is the SCALP terminology corresponding to status and conservation of the alpine lynx population. So this has been developed by our Swiss colleagues working on lynx, meaning that you can characterize the present signs through this terminology, C1 hard facts, typically when you have the genotype of the animal, C2 when you have a very good picture, and then C3 meaning unconfirmed observation. They are separate in different categories, and you have F like false when it is when wolf can be completely excluded. Some of these data can be validated through DNA, typically scats, hair, saliva on the praise, and usually it works quite good. We have good results, at least to distinguish between wolf and dog, as you probably know, through the haplotype. So we can validate it through a SCALP C1. But sometimes it doesn't work. The PCR can be negative because the DNA is of bad quality. Then we are using the forms dedicated for each kind of data from wolves. So I give here as an example the form used to validate the data coming from visual sightings. We have a list of criteria that have to be checked by the member of the wolf network with the observer, and we will tick each criteria just to see wolf possible, not possible. Then all these forms are provided to a group of experts, and these experts will decide if it is possible that the observation can be coming from a wolf or not. We at least ask them to separate between two categories, C2, C3, possible or likely, and the other C3 and F, because in this case, in case of predation on sheep, for example, you will have a possibility of compensation for the farmer. This is an example of this terminology according to the verifiability of an image. For example, here you have C3 undefined because you have a picture of something like it could be a wolf, but it's impossible to have a final answer. Here it's C3 possible. You have an image. Yeah, it's not really clear, but you have all the criteria can be met. So you cannot exclude wolf. And in this case, you have very good quality pictures. Above you have clearly the wolf, so it can be C1 or C2, and F in the case of this nice dog at the bottom. So the results are that we can collect all this information, we can characterize all the data according to the terminology of the SCALP terminology, and you can see the evolution of the data about wolves and their validation through time here in Wallonia. Finally, all this information is mapped on our website, because the idea is really to provide all the validated information to the citizen through our website. This is totally open, and you can check if you click on each data, you can see exactly the location. You can see a comment about what was observed, if it is a sighting, a prey, or a scat, or something like that. So all the information is clearly open to everyone, just to assume transparency, because this topic is, of course, very touchy. So there is not really conclusion. I just tried to show you two examples where we have some tools to allow validation of the data in a special focus about mammals. So of course for the other species it will be different. But okay, I will be happy to discuss further with you about these validation possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alain, for this presentation. So I guess the brain could be a little bit hotter now. It's maybe the right time to make a short break. So I will propose you to make a 20-minute break. We can come back here at 11. The coffee break is there. It was the part of validation, and we will start again at 11 with the use of data. And we will have 3 different examples of use of data. So I see that, of course, you can take pictures of the presentation, but they will be anyway available. Huh? But don't hesitate. It's not a problem. Yes, absolutely. Don't hesitate. Feel free. And congratulations to the speakers, because we get closer to the schedule. Thank you very much. Okay.